Where were you 20 years ago? I know exactly where I was 20 years ago because of on this day exactly. I know what I was doing. And so I'd been in such a bad living situation. I had just put my two oldest dogs down. They were really sick, and work was really chaotic. And my son Matthew, who was going through such really bad health issues at the time, and I had nowhere to relieve my stress. So my brother, who lived with me at the time, and my daughter, Clary, my oldest daughter, tried to get me to play an online game, which I kept refusing to play. And they kept trying to get me to play this game, and I kept refusing. And then I would sit there and watch them, and it looked a lot of fun, but I still didn't want to play it. And so I did play video games. It wasn't that I didn't play video games, I just never played video games with other people, like online. So one time they would get me to take their character from one place to another, and so I got started in playing that, and then I was like, okay, maybe I'll take a little dabble at it. So I started playing, and it was a lot of fun. On this day in particular, there was a message that came across the screen. So I made my own character, and I started playing around and met some really interesting and fun people. And I hadn't even been playing it for about, not even for a month yet. And there was a message that came across my screen that said, if you want to join a city, then come to this spot. And I was like, sounds interesting. Okay. So I went and I joined a city in a far off place. Well, my character did. In a far off, planet that was very scary. We had to walk all the way there. And I got to place my house. I got to join the guild that was there, and I got to meet some of the people that were there on this day in particular. And the reason why I know exactly is because a little while later, one of our friends showed us the date of this day, which is the 5th. So, of course, I'm really good with, once I know the date, I remember things, which is funny. Anyways, 20 years later, the guild master of the guild is now, and the barkeep, he was too, are is now my husband, and we have another child together. But you would never know if I was to tell you 20 years ago, if I was to tell that person that this would have been my life, there's no way I would have ever believed it. By where I was 20 years ago, the mess I was in, the chaos that was happening, and even still, like when my husband wanted to actually be part of my life, I kept saying, no, you don't understand the chaos. And here we are 20 years later. We've been married for over 15 years, just about 16 years. In March it'll be 16 years. And we've gone through so many things, so you never know what's going to happen. My husband actually helped me a lot with Matt. Like I said, Matt was so sick. He was having, so he has epilepsy, and he was having seizures nonstop. And my husband helped, my now husband helped me find ways to help Matt even better, to where he hardly has any seizures. Like it's not, like, you can't even compare. And like, even when we saw the specialist, after we put him on a low carb diet, and we started changing up his diet, and we've done many things since then, but we put him from low carb to gluten free. But I'll tell you the story first before I jump ahead. But the low carb diet helped him so much that when we went to see the specialist and they did an EEG on his brain, they found out that it was only, like, he had epilepsy through his whole brain, and then it went to just a small portion of his brain. So when you start changing things around and you start doing things different and you start telling different stories and you start being somebody different, it creates so much more for you. And that was that was a like an eye opener for me. Everything I thought was impossible became possible just by taking a chance, and playing a silly game became totally different for me. My whole life changed. I learned that just because things are the way they seem to be, my reality seems to be the way it is, doesn't necessarily mean that is the way it is. You get to change your whole life just by a simple little thing you do, and you're not even aware of it. You're not even aware of it until you look back, and then you go, wow, look what I've done. Look what I've done. You get to choose it all. You get to change it all. You get to be whoever it is you want to be. It's not, I'm not going to say it's not hard, because believe me, I fought. I fought and I fought. Like I said, when he wanted to get to know me, and I kept saying, I don't think you do. You don't understand. You don't understand my life, what goes on here. And the more I would tell him, the more intrigued he was. He didn't care I had 3 kids. He didn't care that one of them was pretty much bedridden. Like, I would be sitting talking to him, my husband, because we lived in different countries. He lived in the U.S. and I lived in Canada. And we lived like, even though we lived right across, like over the border from each other, we lived farther away from each other, long distance, and 2 hours ahead of each other. But we would talk on the phone, and there would be days where I couldn't get on to play because I'd be there with Matt, who couldn't move, who couldn't do anything at all. My girls were a godsend. My husband, who wasn't even in the same house as me, was a godsend. It was like, I know now, like the universe lined it all up for me to be able to go through that difficult time that we went through with Matt, to get us to where we are today, where he's pretty much seizure free. Like, he still has them, but it's, compared to where we were 20 years ago, it's so not as often. How's that? And so he's been with me through the worst and through the good, and even falling down my rabbit hole. He's been through with everything. So you never know what the universe has planned for you. But the minute you stop wanting what you think you want, the minute you start just allowing, and believe me, I was in a relationship before, and I fought and fought and fought for that relationship. I did everything in my power. I accepted every bad situation. Like, looking back, I don't even know who that person is that went through all that, but it was because I was fighting what I thought I really wanted. And it was all the silly things. It was like all the thoughts that, oh, well, I'm married, so I have to stay married. Can't get divorced. You have to do it through whatever the reasoning in my mind was. And it's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that you don't have to stay married or go through the tough times, or but if you're the only one trying, and that's pretty much what it was, you change and change and change, and you become whoever it is you think you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be yourself. You're not supposed to be anybody else. You got to keep being you. It's so easy to get wrapped up on what other people tell us we're supposed to be doing. But you gotta be who you're supposed to be. And if you can't be you and them help you see the better you, they keep putting you down, or they keep justifying why they're like this or whatever. They're not for you. It's that simple. Move on. But amazing how easy it is to, I know the universe has put many, many things in my path that I refused and I was afraid to do, and I blocked myself. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. I know there's been so many, but you know what? It's okay, because I now am open. I've learned, and I didn't learn this first time. Let me tell you, with my husband, I didn't learn just because it happened that first time that was all I was supposed to do, because I never went onto the game to look for anybody. I was done. My life was chaotic. My life was I was ready and willing to be single for the rest of my life, raising my kids and having my animals all around me. And yes, even though I had 2 puppies that I had put down, I still had a horde full of animals, including a duck, which I just absolutely loved. We get to choose who we want to be. We get to choose what we want to do. Our life is ours. But the more we fight for something, we're off track. If we're fighting and it's not flowing, we are off track. Let it flow. Let it be something you are flowing with. If you're fighting it, you're not flowing. If you're changing you, it's not for you. You need to create you. The you that you are waking up every morning grateful for. The you that you don't have to second guess yourself. You don't have to justify yourself. You don't get angry at people just because they're giving you advice or because they're telling you, hey, this is not a right situation for you. Those people that are telling you that it's not a right situation for you, that even if they mention that you are in an abusive situation and you think you're not, that's okay. But like, look at it. Why would they say this? And don't think, oh, they're just being overprotective, or oh, they're just saying that because they whatever. I don't even know the reason why you would think that, but I know that in my last situation, had somebody told me I was in an abusive situation or abusive relationship, I may have looked at it differently. I wish somebody did tell me I deserved better, but we were all of us have been in those situations, and you connect with people who, there was a friend I had, and she had a really good relationship with a really nice guy and had a daughter with him, and she broke up because she just didn't see it going anywhere anymore. And I was in, what? Like, what? This is a really nice guy. Like, he works his butt off for you. He moves places that he doesn't even want to live for you. Like, it blew my mind. Like, I met the guy. I hung out with them. He was a sweetheart. I couldn't believe it. And here I was in my relationship feeling I was stuck. And that was like big for me. Like, I should have learned then, wait, maybe I'm not stuck. Maybe I can move on. Maybe I can do stuff. But it wasn't my time. I had to really go through what I went through because I kept making up stories. We get to tell our own stories. This is big. we get to tell our own stories. We get to create our own stories. So we, and back then, me was, I had 3 kids and I really didn't want to be a single parent again. And I had been a single parent and I was a single parent with this person. And actually, I loved it. But I did miss, you know, I don't know, I missed part of it. And because I would mention that, then somehow it got to the point where I got talked back into being back in with him. And the thing is when we were separated, it was better. It's so weird. Anyways, people get to choose who they want to be, the stories you get to tell. And that was the thing. Like, there were times where they were so nice and so sweet and so kind. And so it helped me remember that, right? And I mean, that's just part of it. He was having his own, I'm not blaming him. I'm sure I was just as not healthy. Kind of hard because I am a loving, kind, compassionate being. But I mean, he gets to tell his own story, right? Everybody gets to tell their own story. And we had good times, and we were just not made to be together. End of story. It was not meant to be. So when you tell your stories and you're telling your stories that it's, something I got to do, or we had our good times, what about them? You got to stick it out, whatever the story is. You're fighting and fighting and fighting with whatever God, universe, whatever you want to call it, has in store for you. And it could be better. And believe me, in a time that I was having with Matt, and many times since then, of everything that we've gone through, me and my now husband have gone through. So Mike is my husband. Everything that we've gone through, you want somebody who is going to support you, who's going to be there for you, who's going to hug you when you need it the most. Yes, my kids have always been there for me. My girls, Matthew, Loki, and Jaden, my granddaughter, always been there for me. And I love them so much. They're amazing. And they help me through things too. My animals help me as well. But you really need whoever your partner is going to be the partner that you require at the time. Like, that it just fits, So today, 20 years ago, I know exactly where I was because I met the person that I was going to marry, except I didn't know that at the time. You never know what you're going to do, what's going to happen, but the more you let things flow, the better it goes. I can guarantee you that. Let it go. Let it flow. We are all way better. We are all way happier for knowing him, for getting to be in his life. He is an amazing being that I'm very grateful for. I'm grateful that everything that happened in his life happened so that he knew what he wanted. He knew who he wanted to be. I knew what I wanted, and I knew what I wanted to be. In fact, I actually wrote in a book on a regular basis and thought about it, what I would like in a father for my kids, what I would like in a relationship, and what that looks like. And I wrote it in hopes that at the time that the relationship that I was going in and out of, that's what I was hoping would happen, that they would want to change and they would want to become the better person. But everybody gets to choose them, and not that I wanted them to change because that sounds bad. I just wanted things different. I wanted to have the life I have now, believe it or not, and I have it. And it is really good when you decide what it is, when you know what it is you want and you no longer are settling, don't settle. You don't need to settle. And maybe you don't know yet what's going to happen in the next year, let alone 20, and that's okay. But if you could have anything happen for you, what would it be? And maybe it's not even a relationship wise. Maybe it's your whole life. Like for me, back then, 20 years ago, the only thing I was thinking of was how do I heal my son? I'd still like him to be 100% seizure free, but I am so grateful we are here today with vitamin D, um, magnesium, which I just found out actually helps with epilepsy, um, a gluten-free diet, and THC and CBD, and of course his anti-seizure medication. But having a stress-free life, major with that. You can't live in the environment I was living in and surviving and expect someone in your family not to have seizures. They stress out. It's a very stressful environment. If you could live a stress-free life and just go with the flow, man, your health will get better and better. Stop making things difficult for yourself. Look for the clues. What seems so weird that would actually create an amazing life for you? As simple as just playing a game. 20 years ago today, I took a chance. Not because I wanted to meet anybody. In fact, that was the only reason I didn't want to play. I didn't want to play a game online because I didn't want to meet people. Sounds funny, but I met enough people at work. I was already stressed out with everything else, and a lot of time, more people means more stress. I'm an empath. I can feel vibrations even across the internet. So for me, vibrating on a different level, keeping myself stress-free. And back then, that's all I wanted. I wanted just a place to de-stress. I had a very stressful life at that time. My work environment, my home environment. My son was totally sick, which was my home environment. Being a mom is so important to me. I love being a mom. Having him so sick and the doctors weren't any help. He could barely come out of one seizure and went into the next. And when I would phone the doctor, they would just say, up his medication. Here, I'll give him a different medication. Take him to the hospital. They'd just do the same thing. And over again, to the point where he now is on the last anti-seizure medication out there. Which is why we've tried everything else. And anytime something comes up, I try that too. As long as it's healthy, of course. So you get little signs everywhere from the universe, from God, whatever. I'm going to call it the universe right now, but it's the same thing in my book. We get to choose. We get little signs from the universe, and we get to decide whether or not we're going to take it or not. And there will be times where there is a sign after a sign after a sign, and sometimes we ignore that sign, and sometimes we ignore that sign, and then finally we go, oh, okay, it's right in front of us. I guess I better do it. THC and CBD was very big like that for me. And it's not that I didn't believe in it. He was so young. So when Matt was 13, when he was diagnosed with epilepsy, and then he had so many. At first, it was just a couple, and then he went on this medication, and it seemed to get, it didn't help, but his seizure activity, his, sorry. So he went on so the first seizure he had, we were going to see if he had any more, and then he had another one, and then I found out from somebody he had gone and spent the night with that he had one at their house too. So that was already two. Then there was three, and then four, and then the doctor, and then I phoned the doctor, and the doctor said that we need to put him on some anti-seizure medication. But it wasn't like a lot of seizures at one time. And then, and that was on his 13th birthday. And then the following year, so he went on this medication, the first medication he went on, and he was, so before the seizure medication, he's happy-go-lucky, my love bug, you know, fun. And then he went on this anti-seizure medication, and he became so depressed, and he ended up wanting to do some really bad stuff to himself. So I talked to the doctor. The doctor didn't want to take him off the medication or change his medication, and I was working full-time in a stressful job, and I couldn't just have him be like that while I'm not home. I mean, that's irresponsible, right? You have to do something. So the doctor was not listening. I took him off the medication anyways, and then he didn't have any seizures for a while, and then he started again. And so then I had to take him to the doctor again and get the doctor to prescribe some more medication. He asked why I took him off. I told him the reason. He said, "You can't just do that." And I'm like, well, now you know what type of mom I am. I'm going to help my son no matter what, so you better figure it out. I can do what I think I need to do. And because he was so young, and yes, I know there's other options now out there, way more, but I had to go through, this is like 20 years ago, right? Actually, it's over 20 years ago, because 20 years ago he was, it was 20 years ago. No, because he's going to be 25. I'm 25. Wow, 35. He's 35 this year. So he started when he was 13, so that was way longer than that. Anyways, so in the midst of when, like I said, 20 years ago, where were you 20 years ago? I had already started writing in a book. These are things you can do right now. What do you want your life to look like in a year from now? Write it down. What does your relationship look like? And don't write with whoever, just write what it looks like. What is your relationship? If you have kids, what does your relationship with your kids look like? What does your relationship with your pets look like? Where do you live? Like, take it and start writing it down. Start having fun with yourself. If you start writing down what you want, you might just get it for real. The more you just keep going, no, not going to happen. No, it's just a daydream, blah, blah, blah. Then, of course, you'll never get it, right? Become grateful for every moment. Every moment. I can tell you many times in my life I came grateful. Like just being able to, this is when I was playing the game, and I would get online and I would just be grateful when my friend showed up, which was funny because my friend actually was the barkeep, which was actually my husband, except I didn't know that at the time. Okay, he wasn't my husband at the time, but I didn't know him and his other character were the same guy. And that happened for a while until eventually we connected in real life, and then he told me, like once we started getting to know each other, then he told me who he really was, that he was both. But anyways, I would just go and after a hard day's work, I would just go and play the game and talk to the barkeep and do it whatever crafting I was doing to try and get my levels up, and because it was dangerous to go do anything else until Razor got on, and then, which is my husband, and then we would go like hunt or whatever, right? So you never know what's going to happen. You don't know what the whole process is. And like I said before, I never wanted to socialize with people, but it was a big benefit for me, because once I did start talking, once I did start socializing with people, once I did start allowing, once I started allowing things to happen, I ended up with like a really, really good friend. And then he became my best friend. And this was before we even knew who each other was. You know, he became a really good friend. And I didn't even know if it was a male, female, or whatever. He was just a character I was talking to, who we started talking about personal lives, and I started talking about how difficult it was for me because of my job situation, which also was a stressful, a stressful situation. I worked in an animal shelter, and that was very stressful. I would come home, and then there would be more stress, and like it was always something, but it was a good escape. And I appreciate my daughter and my brother um, for basically forcing me to do it. Not really forcing me, but encouraging me to go and relieve some stress, because I really didn't have an avenue to go. I couldn't go socialize with friends because I couldn't leave Matt. I couldn't go to a gym or for a run, or I would go and walk my dogs in the morning and at nighttime, but I couldn't do, and like I still had two dogs at home, and brother had a, a third one, but which I ended up inheriting. Um, but so she was my dog at the end there, but actually probably through her whole life because I took care of her. But anyways, um, you never know what's going to happen, is my point here. 20 years from now, you can be a completely different person. I would never, I loved writing 20 years ago. I wrote and wrote and wrote, and I actually still have some of my books that I've written. I've never finished them. I always had a hard time finishing them because I never believed in myself. I always lived stress, stress, stress 20 years ago. I had to learn to let go of survival. I had to learn to let go of helping everybody, because not everybody wants your help. Not everybody needs your help. I had to stop being a people pleaser and be okay in my own skin. I had to do what I wanted to do. And I had to forget about what everybody else thought. I had to no longer allow what they thought of me to matter. Whew, that was big. And a lot of it happened all around the same time I met my husband. So many things will change for you once you just go with the flow. Do the crazy. I don't know what it is. For me, it was going online and playing a video game, joining a guild, joining a city, and becoming friends with someone. Many people. I became friends with many people. There's so much. I actually even helped kids learn how to make macaroni and cheese. He's still my kid, even though he's all grown up now and I've never met him in real life. Maybe one day we will make a trip to his town and surprise him. That'd be fun. We ended up having our son Loki, who is 13. We ended up with a granddaughter, Jaden, that we've experienced together. Both, Loki was his first, so he got to see him be born, and then he got to meet Jay minutes after she was born. So there's so many wonderful things that have happened in the last 20 years, and so many really scary, sad, depressing things that have happened. But if you have somebody you can go through all the stuff with, the bad, the good, the ugly, all of it, and still consider them your best friend, and still able to have a good relationship with them, yeah, you never know where you're going to be in 20 years. But if you don't start right now by writing it down, if you don't know where you want to be in 20 years, if you don't know where you want to be in a year or 6 months from now, or for that matter, you don't know who you want to be, it is time to invest in you. If you are living in survival mode and you don't know any other mode, here you go. It's big. Are you ready? First thing, write down what it would look like. Write down. What would it look like if you could have whatever it is you're wanting to have? A good relationship, the career of your dreams. That's what I was saying. I used to write all the time, but I never believed in myself, so I stopped. I would never finish a book. I would never, ever think of publishing it or allow anybody else to read it. I would read my stories and tell my stories to my kids, but only them. I never trusted anybody else. Never believed it. Then I got to a place now where I wrote a book 5 years ago, and that was 20, Life with Matt, and I published it myself. It's called Life with Matt, and it's all about our struggles, all about what we went through to try and give Matt the best life he can have. And I'm writing another chapter because I never made it into an ebook, and I'm republishing that book November 23rd of this year. So in a few 18 days, it'll be out again, new published, new book cover, like all of it will be an ebook and again up on Amazon. That book I written and published this year. You get to choose you, the best you, and I'm working on Back Up the Rabbit Hole. The best is yet to come, because I really believe that you can do anything you want to do. If I can do it, you can do it. You really can. You can have a really good, solid relationship, not just with other people, but with yourself. You can start believing in who you are. You can have the career you want to have. It doesn't matter about anything else. You just have to put it out there. Write it down. Start believing in yourself. You can do anything. You are enough just the way you are. You can heal relationships. You can heal the hurt inside yourself. You can heal the trauma. You can heal you. Believe me. If I can do it, you can do it. You are worth it. You are enough. I love you just the way you are.